So tell me, what is some of the biggest challenges that's associated with being a leader of an entire district?
The weight, they
Mm-hmm.
say, heavy is the head that wears the crown, so to speak. And
Yep.
I'm certainly no king, and I don't really like that metaphor, particularly
Yep.
given the political climate these days. Just the level of responsibility. I mean, there's 3,500 kids that attend Olmsted Falls City Schools, and it's important to me to have an environment in our 5 buildings that we have where all the kids feel seen, heard, and loved, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
voice. And same with the teachers as well to,
Mm-hmm.
shape that environment for them.
I work with a lot of school districts, but I don't meet a lot of people like you, bro.
Really,
And I mean that in a very positive way. Sometimes you'd be surprised how many people don't respect the leader. So, like for example, I'll go and I'll do like a professional development, and we'll start talking about like trust and leadership. And then when people do their surveys or they have to come, they're like, "Can I talk to you, Dr. Knight? Man, I love what you said, but man, they don't listen there. They don't listen up top. This not gonna go nowhere," and so forth.
yeah.
I've never heard that in the 4 years that I've worked here.
This video is sponsored by Roundstone.
Welcome to Humble Conversations, the podcast where we explore leadership through the lens of humility, service, and purpose. I'm your host, Dr. James Knight, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with an educational leader who is deeply committed to building strong schools and stronger communities. So, Dr. Jim Lloyd, Superintendent of Olmsted Falls City Schools, has been a passionate voice for public education, student well-being, and inclusive leadership. Under his leadership, the district has grown in both academic innovation and community engagement. In today's conversation, we'll talk about what it takes to lead a school system with empathy, how to remain grounded in the face of criticism, and what it means to cultivate trust in a time when education is under pressure. So,
Yeah,
Dr. Lloyd, man, thank you for being
absolutely.
here.
Thanks
You've
for
been
having
a
me.
good friend of mine, over the years. So I'm just humbled and blessed to be able to be here with you, right here in your office. So we came to set this thing right on site. You
Right.
know what I mean? We
Yeah.
squeezed in here, and you've been so gracious. And so I'm thankful for your friendship.
I'm thankful for yours, buddy. Thank you
Yeah,
for saying that. I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
So what we like to do, we're gonna talk about leadership. We're gonna talk about, just some of the challenges that, you have to go through in education and things of that nature. But tell us a little bit about yourself. For those that are listening, just your journey. Maybe, I know you grew up here in Northeast Ohio and you've been in education for over 30 years. So let's start off with that, and then
Tell
we'll,
you where I was born, in St. Joseph's Hospital in Lorain, Ohio. Started there.
Nah,
Um,
it's up to you. However you want to do it.
yeah. So, I have a family of 2 brothers, one older, one younger.
Yeah.
I was born in Lorain, Ohio, and then
Yeah.
we moved around a bit. Ended up staying in Sheffield Lake, and that's kind of where I grew up. I'm a product of public school.
Yeah.
Education had a huge impact on me. My K-12 education. Divorced parents, raised by a single mom,
Yeah.
so we were on federal assistance and all those things growing up, which I think those early years sort of shapes your who you are and
Oh
kind of like
yeah.
how you frame things in your life. I was fortunate to be able to go off to to a nice college. I went to Ohio Wesleyan University, studied
Mm-hmm.
psychology, left there, went to Akron, got my
Yeah.
graduate degree, started working, got my doctorate from Ashland University, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I never thought that I would end up right here in this chair as a
Mm-hmm.
superintendent talking with you about these things, but I'm glad that I am. I started my career as a school psychologist, and I started working here in Olmsted Falls Schools.
Yep.
Um, did that, really enjoyed that, and then got called to go and interview for my first administrative position in Westlake City Schools, as a director of student services in charge of federal programs, special education, all those things. I did that for 9 years, and then was asked, an opportunity came here to come back. So I came back as
Yeah.
the assistant superintendent, charge of
Yeah.
curriculum instruction and assessment, and then the superintendent here left, and they asked me if I was interested in doing the job, and I absolutely was. So I've been here for 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that's good, man.
yeah,
That's
31
good.
in the field.
Wow.
Right,
We got a lot of things in common. So you went to Ohio Wesleyan.
we're in the NCAC, baby.
NCAC, brother, is right. I'm a graduate of Overland
Yeah.
College. You got your doctorate degree from Ashland University. I got my doctorate degree from Ashland
Hmm.
University. So we're brothers, and both our names are James.
They are. Look at that.
Although you go by Jim.
I do go by Jim. Yeah.
so, tell me, what is some of the biggest challenges that's associated with being a leader of an entire district?
The weight, they
Mhm.
say, heavy is the head that wears the crown, so to speak. And I'm
Yep.
certainly no king, and I don't really like that metaphor, particularly
Yep.
given the political climate these days.
Correct.
But I think just the level of responsibility that you have, and I think one of the things that sort of was strange for me when I entered this job was whenever you talk or whenever you say things, people listen to what it is that you say, and so flippancy and sarcasm sometimes are not good. And
Mhm.
I've certainly had my share of situations when I've said
Mhm.
things like that, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's not what I meant."
Yeah.
But just the level of responsibility. I mean, there's 3,500 kids that attend Olmsted Falls City Schools, and it's important to me to have an environment in our 5 buildings that we have where all the kids feel seen, heard, and loved, and they have a
Mhm.
voice. And same with the teachers as well, to
Mhm.
kind of shape that environment for them and allow them to have a place where they can be their best authentic self. So
Yeah.
those are things I think about when I think about what's the role of a
Yeah.
superintendent, and the gravity, I guess, that's on you. It's
For
heavy
sure.
sometimes.
What do you love? What do you love most about being in this role?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I like. Kids. I mean,
Yeah.
just seeing the impact that the adults make on the kids
Mhm.
is first and foremost. This community is a great community.
Mhm.
They care about kids, and they don't just care about kids learning. They care about we have this saying here of we're a AAA school district for academics, arts, and athletics, and we really want to be the best at all three of those.
Mhm.
So just to see the innovative programs that teachers create, the things that kids say and do, and the passion that they bring to school
Yeah.
every day, and the things that they do in their own personal lives and
Yeah.
things, it's it sometimes during COVID it wasn't such a good job,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think a lot of people left. I think
Yeah.
the political climate is a little bit tricky right now to try to navigate through,
Yeah.
but I think that the work is important, and so
Yeah.
I stay and
Hmm.
continue to do that.
You know, what I was excited about. Thank you for sharing that. So I work with a lot of school districts, so I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of school leaders in my role as a consultant. But I don't meet a lot of people like you, bro,
Really.
and I mean that in a very positive way because when I go into some districts and so forth, and sometimes you'd be surprised how many people don't respect the leader.
Hmm.
So, like for example, I'll go and I'll do like a professional development, and we'll start talking about like trust and leadership. And then when people do their surveys or they have to come, they're like, "Can I talk to you, Dr. Knight? Man, I love what you said, but man, they don't listen there. They don't listen up top. This not gonna go nowhere," and so forth.
Yeah.
I've never heard that in the 4 years that I've worked here. I've never had anyone that came and said, "Man, how do you do that?"
Yeah. I think that
Like this is a huge compliment
yeah.
to your leadership. Is it intentional? Like, is it you just stumbled upon it? Like, I believe that you are working off of something in your head to where you're able to drive this culture where people have a shared language.
So thank you. Thanks. You made me blush, man. Thanks for saying
Yeah.
that.
Hey, your turn is gonna come where you get to make me blush.
I can't wait for that. We both graduated from Ashland University and got our doctorate from there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, and that's in educational leadership. And I've been sort of a student of that game for a while. So there are things that I hold, as I said in the very beginning, how you're raised and what you go through in your younger years sort of shapes who you are, I think. And then obviously, whenever you go to college, you start to learn different things. And as you experience life and you experience work life in particular, and advanced education, I think there are things that I rely on. So there's a book that really we studied in my Ashland program by Kuzis and Posner, and I have it like over here, called The
Mm-hmm.
Leadership Challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's a
I
saying
got
in the
that.
Leadership Challenge that says credibility is the foundation of leadership.
Mm.
And it's
Credibility is the
is the
foundation of
foundation of
leadership.
leadership. Yeah.
Okay.
And credibility is something that takes a while to build, but
Yep.
you can lose that in a New York minute. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So,
Yep.
and how do you establish credibility? I think people first, and this is some of the things that come from that book, people first listen to what it is that you say,
Yep.
but then they watch what you do.
Yep.
And whenever your words do not align with your actions or your behaviors,
Yep.
then your credibility takes a hit.
Yeah.
And so um, I've always been one to try to bring my best authentic self.
Yep.
And sometimes that's a little bit raw compared to others who are in
Yep.
my position, I think, who may be a little bit too guarded or worried about what other people are going to think.
Yep.
But I've really relied on this idea of what I say is what I do. And I think when you do that, you establish credibility. And if
Yep.
you do that on a continual basis, then people trust you,
Yeah.
at least because they know exactly what it is. They
Yeah.
may not like it, what it is that your decision is or what you say,
Yeah.
but they understand it and they know where you're coming from. And so
Yeah.
I think that's what it's been for me, is credibility and really focusing on that.
Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? Would you just contribute it to like your mom, like just how you were raised, like why does that matter to you, like you read a lot of
Yeah, it's
things
a
in
good question.
books,
Right.
but it doesn't necessarily register, like sometimes I'll talk to people and people know the right thing to say, but they don't always walk it to where
Mm-hmm.
they live it. And then, it's like that's how they get the jobs to be the superintendent.
Yeah.
Because they interview really well and they know all the right things to say. But somewhere it seemed like it just doesn't connect. Like it's not lived out. Like what is that for you? How did it
I
come
don't,
about?
you're right. I mean, my mom certainly shaped who I am, as a
Yeah.
person, and my older brother and my younger brother as well, and just
Yeah.
experiences in life. And I don't know. I've just always been like, if you want to do the work in an organization, and schools
Yeah.
are an organization,
Yeah.
I don't understand. It just doesn't compute for me why people would say one particular thing and then do something
Mhm.
that's completely different.
Yeah.
There's a lot that doesn't make sense to me these
Yeah.
days, but I don't understand why
Yeah.
somebody would do that. So it's
Yeah.
just something I just believe in. I don't know where
Yeah.
it came from. I guess I have to think about that
For sure.
a little bit more,
Yeah, for sure.
you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a part of you, and that's probably what makes it connect. Is because I find that people are attracted to authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
That like people are real, and so they see that, and they can see the care and the heart that you have. And so let's go back to that question, because you talked about the credibility being the foundation of
Mm-hmm.
leadership, and cultivating that trust. What are some of the strategies that you've implemented, just as a school leader, to be able to make yourself credible,
Sure.
besides, just making sure that your actions line up with what you say? Because I do see that you're very strategic about messaging. I
Yeah.
do see that, when I talk to people at all levels, it seems as though everyone seems to know like the mission and the vision. How did you make that stick? Because I go to some places and, people are a part of an organization. They have no clue about the values and just where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everybody's doing their own thing. So how did you do that?
Well, there's throw all kinds of sayings, I guess. We
Mm-hmm.
stand on the shoulders of giants, right? That's how
Yeah.
we can kind of see
Yeah.
it in some ways. And
Yeah.
I think Sir Isaac Newton said that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the way that, and it's not my vision.
Yeah.
It's a vision that I was able to collaborate with others and craft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think rather than imposing that vision on a group of people, I think when I first became the superintendent, that's the first thing that we looked at is we looked at what is the district, what do we say, that
Mm-hmm.
we're about. And we looked at previous examples of what that was in this school district. And it was really more about test scores and academics, and we're a school and learning is our core business, but test scores shouldn't be our core business. It needs to be something that has a greater purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pulled a group of people together, and we really learned about what is a vision, what kinds of things do we want to strategically focus on, and we wrote that down, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and then once we had that, and ours was we want to inspire and empower students to make a contribution to the world, which is, I think, a greater purpose than we want to improve 2% on our reading achievement scores.
Yep.
I mean, improving on your reading achievement scores are fine, but
Yep.
people, I think, can rally everyone, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, teachers, administrators, school board members, parents, students, community can rally around, inspire, and empower, because I think that
Mm-hmm.
that says that you're
Yep.
really putting your stake in the ground for something important.
Yep.
So I think this is again back to sort of the foundation of some of this Kuzes and Posner stuff of you collaboratively create that vision, and then you inspire that vision in people
Yeah.
by trying to then figure out, like, how are you going to inspire and empower kids, and how
Mm-hmm.
are you going to inspire and empower the adults to do great things on behalf of
Mm-hmm.
kids. And what I found is educators are great people. They have this calling to the profession. And so by creating, I think, a vision that really is about inspiring and empowering, that's right in their wheelhouse. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what they want to do. And so you say, we're not going to be about test prep and all these other things. We're going to do holistic kind of education,
Yeah.
academics, arts, and athletics. That's what kids love to come to school.
Yep.
Some kids love all three.
Yep.
Some kids love one. Some love
Yep.
two. But I mean, they all have, I think, in general, like, can rally around one of those. And
Yeah.
so, for us, that was really our avenue of how we're going to go about inspiring, empowering kids. And I think people believe in that. And it doesn't hurt that I've been here for 12 years,
Yep.
as well. I'm not going away. I think people thought, like, superintendents don't stay very long in particular
Mm-hmm.
positions, and that'll go
Mm-hmm.
away. But we put that stake in the ground, and people were inspired by it, and we have had this, like, relentless pursuit of purposeful action to try to chase that dream. So that's
Yeah.
what we've been working on.
Yeah, and just me knowing you and me working with the district over 4 years, I think you guys are very strategic to always refer back to it.
Always, it's our compass.
It's intentional.
It's 1,000% intentional. And one of the things you had said about messaging and things, and I learned this not from in school, my undergrad or graduate work, but just reading and things. I think that superintendent is like, you are the CEO of branding, and like, you're
Yep.
in charge of branding, of how you bring yourself to particular situations, what you say, what you
Yeah.
write. Words are really important.
Yeah.
Um, and we have remained focused on that. And so
Yeah.
for every decision we make, um, we ask the question, how will that inspire and empower kids? And for every policy that we develop, or every law that comes from the federal or the state level, or every policy that they force on us in some ways, we ask that question, will this help us inspire and empower kids?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some concerns that I have about that right now that we'll probably get into in a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, but I think that's really what led me to you,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
you guys do, is because if
Yeah.
we're thinking, like, inspiring and empowering kids, like, all kids,
Yeah.
every kid, the black ones, the white
Yeah.
ones, the brown ones,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
the straight ones, the gay
Yep.
ones, the
Yep.
trans ones,
Yep.
all kids.
Yep.
How do we inspire and empower kids?
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah. That's true.
So we've used that as our purpose.
Yeah.
Doesn't Politics aside, party aside, doesn't matter. That's what our organization does.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
That's good. That's good. So, I'm on a journey to preach the gospel of humility, right?
Yes, you are, and you're doing great.
I appreciate it. So when you think about humility and how that connects with leadership, let's start off. Let me do it in two parts. Let's
Okay.
start off talking about just humility. Why is humility so important to this work and just what you do as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, for humility is putting others ahead of self
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. I think the calling into this profession, um, it's been a respected profession historically, but not so much these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I continue to respect it because it's what it is. It's you
Yeah.
need to bring humility here and put self above others. You put the students ahead of the adults. The teachers should put the students ahead of themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think to inspire and empower kids, you need to have this level of humility. I mean, we have you need to teach with humility. I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we've learned, with your assistance, and something
Mm-hmm.
that we've integrated into, our we have this
Mm-hmm.
accountability system called a benefits
Mm-hmm.
based accountability system, and teaching with humility is one of those benefits. You
Yeah.
need to be mindful of what you think and believe, and also what like the people in your classroom and what they believe, because there's all kinds of different, you
Mm-hmm.
know, views and
Mm-hmm.
spirits and whatever in those
Yeah.
kids in front of you.
Yeah.
Um, so humility for me is self above, or others above self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get into a position where you're like the head of an entire district, how do you guard against pride? How do you guard against arrogance? Because we do understand that humility can enhance our leadership. At least that's what I preach,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what I teach oftentimes is that typically what I've found from my research is that humility enhances the gift. It helps to make the gift brighter, stronger, more effective.
Sure.
But oftentimes, when people get into positions of power, sometimes they lose that. So, in your experience, like, how do you guard against that? What are some things you do? Because sometimes, I'll go and I'll work in a district and so forth, and they're like, they need that.
Right. Yeah.
But the leaders are, they may not always be a part of it. And so it gives that us versus them kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus going back to the credibility. It's been a foundation of leadership, right? That you're leading the way, you're modeling it. So the question is like, how do you guard against it? How do you guard against it when you get power, you get into a position, you have a lot of influence. You know, how do you guard against that arrogance and pride that can?
Couple different ways. First, family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you said you're James, I'm Jim. I'm Jimmy at home. My
Yep.
brothers call me Jimmy.
Yep.
My mom and dad called me Jimmy.
Yep.
I'm a poor white kid from Sheffield Lake, Ohio, that
Yeah.
grew up and with really not a whole lot. And
Yeah.
so I always think back to kind of like how I grew up,
Yeah.
and I think maybe coming from humble beginnings,
Yeah.
so to speak, may have done some of that. And
Yeah.
my friends and family, that's how I am at home. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Dr. Lloyd,
Yeah.
unless somebody calls me a name and I say, you need to call me doctor, whatever that name
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
be. You know what I mean? And the team and the people around me, I've
Mm-hmm.
been really fortunate by being here 12 years that I've had the opportunity to hire a lot of the people that are on my administrative team, that are our teachers and others. And if you're bringing your authentic self to the table, at least that's what you say, you think
Mm-hmm.
that you are, they serve as sort of a check and balance that you're not in an echo chamber,
Mm-hmm.
that you're not talking about yourself, or people are around the table are going, God, you're great. Look how awesome you are. And, you've done this and that. And for me, it's always us over me,
Yep. Yep.
um, for sure. And so I think by having it's culture. And I think by having a culture where we can challenge one another, we can push back on one another, that helps keep you humble. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've certainly had my slip ups where I've like, we're going to do this because I said we're going to do this,
Right.
and
Right.
like, okay, well, that didn't come off right. And
Yeah.
what I've tried to do whenever I've had gotten into those situations where it didn't really come out as right,
Yeah.
um, is to say, I wasn't my best self there. I'd like a do over on that. And I
Yeah.
think people have been really generous
Yeah.
with that. And I think when you do that and you show this level of vulnerability that you have of that was not what I meant,
Yeah.
that came out wrong and you want to go back, people see that as safe. I mean,
Yeah.
there needs to be psychological safety in the classroom for, innovation and learning and great things to happen. There needs to be the same thing in the boardroom,
Mm-hmm.
in the administrative room, or wherever it may happen to
Yeah.
be. I think, my teachers and people in this school district, I think, could come to me and be honest with me. And I
Mm-hmm.
would want that level of honesty. And
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's not there, then that's on me. Then I've somehow come across as an arrogant
Mm-hmm.
person that has one particular view, and it's I'm gonna shape everybody with my particular view, and
Yeah.
that's just not how you successful organizations, whether they're school organizations or whatever. That's not how you do business. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what the CEO or the superintendent should do.
Yeah.
So,
So, what would you say? How did psychology, starting off as school psychologist, how do you think that played a role into your path to leadership, and how do you think it has influenced the way you
sure.
lead?
Yeah, there was a problem at first. I'm not going to lie. I was
Right.
great. Like nobody, there's not a whole lot of people with psychology degrees
Yep.
in education. Those
Yep.
that are school psychologists or counselors or
Yep.
something to that. But helping people was always like at my core. That was
Yep.
always my area of interest. In my undergrad, when I went to Ohio Wesleyan, it was I can go and do the student teaching route because I
Mm-hmm.
did, start to kind of like
Mm-hmm.
go down that road, or I can stay with psychology and go do some
Mm-hmm.
original research. And I was
Yeah.
interested more on the psychology thing. So I'd made that
Yeah.
determination. And then just through some career research,
Mm-hmm.
illuminated the field of school psychology and went
Yep.
into it. And I think becoming a school administrator as a director of student services and being a psychologist, that aligns because you're in
Mm-hmm.
charge of the student service
Mm-hmm.
organizational parts of things. But it really wasn't until I made that switch, got my doctorate, and I became the person in charge of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, which essentially is the core business, teaching and
Mm-hmm.
learning, that it was like, well, who's this guy?
Yep.
He's never been a teacher. I've
Yep.
taught graduate classes,
Yep.
and that's teaching.
Yep.
But I'd never been in a K-12 classroom. So there was a lot of skepticism
Oh yeah, that's
coming in,
huge.
like,
That's huge in
he's
education.
like, who's this? Yeah, you've never been a
Yeah.
teacher,
Yep.
and you've never been this. And I always say, well, I haven't been a lot of things, and there's a lot of people that haven't been a lot of things
Yeah.
because you can't be everything.
Yep.
Um, but I think what I am is I think I'm a good listener.
Yep.
I think that I'm an authentic person, and I think I'm collaborative.
Yep.
Uh, and I think that I can analyze things from a particular way. I can be
Mm-hmm.
diagnostic,
Yep.
and I think those sort of what soft skills or whatever they
Yep.
may happen to
Yep.
be proved to people, I suppose, that I could do the job. And I
Yeah.
think then it's interesting is I kind of the longer I've done this, the more benefit I see in having a background in psychology,
Oh yeah.
and human behavior,
Yep.
particularly COVID and how COVID hit us as a
Mm-hmm.
school district and really the world and really,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the United States, how student mental health is a
Mm-hmm.
real challenge these days,
Mm-hmm.
and how adults, based on the sort of noise politically that's happened when the polarization of our country in some ways, along with COVID, has impacted the educators and those that work within that space, and the fact that they need to know that people care about them. I think that's psychology and how to help
Mm-hmm.
staff really kind of take care of themselves and
Yep.
their well-being and their own resilience and things. That's something that we've set as a priority over really the last 3 years. And
Yeah.
so the more I've done it, the more I see psychology being a good, you know, um, area of
Ingredient,
study for
right?
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't at first though.
What's interesting is a book by John Maxwell. Um, it talks about developing a leader within you, and one of the chapters he talks about how the they did a poll where they polled all these CEOs, all these leaders, and they said the number one thing that every leader wished they had more of was essentially psychology.
Really?
It was ability to know people,
Hmm.
because a business is predicated on how strong its human capital is, your
Yeah.
ability to hire, your ability to attract, quality talent. And so that's interesting that you talk about that, right? But most leaders would say that, man, if I had a superpower, it would be to know people, right? Why do people do what they do? What moves them? But now the other thing that, as I'm listening, as you kind of unpack your journey, you started off very, um, what I would say, on this path of humble leadership, right? That desire to be collaborative, and that desire to listen. So for those young leaders in education that's watching, the question would be, well, how do you incorporate humility into an education system? Like, how do you do that? Like, what do you guys try to do? If a school leader is saying, man, I want to be a humble leader and I want to make sure that I put this and make this a part of our culture, how might one go about doing that? We gonna develop the master class right now.
Is that what we're doing? Yeah. Um, one of the things you got to know yourself. I
Yep.
mean, that's the one. Know thyself.
Yep.
And in order to know thyself, I think you really need to spend time writing down, thinking about what you believe. What are your core beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
Writing them down and constantly going back to those core beliefs and determining whether or not they have evolved with experience, or whether or not they're there,
Mm-hmm.
or continue to be there. And so I did that like a while back. I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 20 years ago. Um, and that's just kind of guided me, throughout.
Why is that exercise so important? A lot of people, they underestimate that.
That
And
reflection, that
yeah,
introspection.
just like, yeah, that introspection, putting down those core values of, making sure that you value driven. Like, people think it's just like, oh, like little flowery type stuff. But every strong leader I talk about always refers to what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I mean, if you don't have that, then what are you doing? I mean, what are you going? I mean,
Man,
what's your GPS, right? As far as how
that's
you're
a
going,
good
you
question.
get
Yeah.
lost. In my
Yeah.
opinion, it's like if you don't go through that exercise, and and it's continual. It's not something that you do once and you put away. I mean,
Yeah.
you may not like continually do it the same way,
Mm-hmm.
throughout your
Mm-hmm.
experience as a leader, but I mean, I think you need to do that to begin to. I mean, it's what you bring to every situation. It's how
Yeah.
you frame things. It's when you get up in front of people and you talk about things. If you don't have that, then
Yeah.
I think that you're fake. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that you're not authentic. I think that anything that might be out there that is like popular or the
Yep.
flavor of the month or whatever
Yep.
it may happen to be, that you're going to fall victim to that sort of thing, as opposed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
this is what I believe.
Yeah.
And like, is this,
Yeah.
if what this person's saying, does that fall in with what I believe? And if not, like, that's a problem,
So how have you done that here? Because schools do that, right? It's like, hey, that's the popular thing, the trendy thing. We're
Yeah.
gonna do it, and then when I'm at different districts, they're like, all right, we'll see how long we do this.
Yeah.
Like, at what point did you know, like, that's not a good way to go? You just put yourself in someone else's shoes to kind of know, like, this is
Sure.
not the way you go about it.
I think, so if I do that, right, I mean,
Yeah.
I got to like model that behavior for my administrative team
Mm-hmm.
and allow them the time and space to be able to do the same kind of thing. And so there are different exercises, that you can do. So when we
Mm-hmm.
go off, before the school year starts, we have our administrative meetings like
Yep.
every year.
Yep.
And, there's I have, it's behind me down under my desk. There are these set of cards. This is one way to do it,
Yep.
that have these sort of beliefs or value statements on those cards. And there's like 50 of them.
Yep.
And it's like, pick your, go through and pick the ones that are like, really important to you and maybe not so important. And then you end up with like two stacks and you push those away and you have these cards. And this starts with a lot of them. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go, okay, I want you to take the cards that you have right now and I want you to, cut that in half or go to 10 and
Mm-hmm.
then go to like 8 and then go to like 4 or 5. And then you
Mm-hmm.
land on like what those core beliefs are, and how you go about how you carry yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've been intentional with that. Um, Everything that I think that we've done as far as our strategic plan to our vision statement, there's been this degree of persistence and intentionality with it when we hire. And this is one of the things you'd mentioned, like, these the superpower of psychology. I think that's one of the things I think that I'm good at is, and if I could go back, I'd be an organizational psychologist. That's what
Yep.
I would do because I think it's fascinating, that
Yep.
whole field of study, which is really like HR or
Mm-hmm.
organizational culture and the study of
Yeah.
those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Those things have been really important to us. Having a solid set of beliefs and what I believe, having the district have a set of solid beliefs, and then everybody that you bring into your organization and hiring people is the most important action that we do, I think, as an organization, outside, of course, of teaching and learning and things. Um, you got to get good people, and you have to create a process where you're going to vet people through your lens that you have created on a set of values, or beliefs. And so I've done that personally. My administrative team has done that. And when we bring people in and put in front of us, to determine whether or not we're going to put them in front of you know preschool through 12th
Mm-hmm.
grade kids, they got to be the right people. So that's how we've established our beliefs and how our beliefs really come into to play with determining who we're going to get,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be in front of our kids.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's
Yeah.
good stuff. It sounds like a lot of what you're saying today, that a lot of leadership is around integrity, cultivating trust, values, and then as in education, a lot of the education kind of takes care of itself. If you can kind of build and structure that culture around these common core values, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about this
Mm-hmm.
as you kind of have been in front of our staff and our
Mm-hmm.
administrators, and speaking of psychology, I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well,
Yep.
and take a look at that, at the different levels of need, and that there's the basics of food, shelter,
Mm-hmm.
and clothing and things, and then you get up to the point where there's psychological safety,
Yeah.
right? And that needs to exist within the culture for the adults and the students.
Yeah.
And so I think we've been mindful of that, throughout.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very intentional to say, in order to inspire and empower, you need to have that degree of
Mm-hmm.
psychological safety within your organization, your classroom, whatever. So
That's good
yeah,
stuff. I think was a really good question. I wrote this down. School superintendents often deal with criticism from all sides.
yeah,
How do you stay grounded during these tense seasons? And I think this is really important for a lot of people that will listen to this, because I think a lot of times leaders struggle with the noise.
COVID was noisy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the question is,
Yeah, how
how
do
have
you
you
deal
dealt
with the
with that?
criticism? Because I think what defines a leader's legacy, particularly if you are, in today's climate as a school leader, if people say, "Hey, what are you doing with that DI? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with that?" And folks, a lot of people in our
Sure.
profession
Yeah.
will just say, "You know what? I'm not gonna do anything."
That's easy. The easy thing to
That's the
do is to
easy
do
way,
nothing.
right?
The easy thing to
Yep.
do is to do nothing.
So the question is, how do you deal with that? How do you manage that when you got people that are saying, "Hey, you're doing this. You brought this person in. You got this. This is political and da da da."
Yeah.
How do you deal with that criticism? And what would you recommend for a young leader that's gonna have to deal with that? To me, I think I know where you're gonna go. It will go back to those core values and all those other things you
Yeah,
were
I mean
talking about. Yeah.
that's it. I mean, so that's one of the reasons why you have those things. It's one of the reasons why you need to live your vision, in a sense, from an organizational standpoint of, and I kind of said that at the beginning. Anything that comes in, whether that's policy, law, or noise, um, you ask the question of, will this help inspire and empower kids?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not to say that like keeping kids at home during COVID is going to inspire and empower them. No, it's not. But first they need to, like, and this gives Maslow, like, they need to be safe. I mean, they need to
Yep.
be healthy. And so there was this crisis that happened. A lot of times I think if, if you're trying to walk down that middle path, which is a very lonely path, and you have people on one side who are criticizing you and people on the other side that are also criticizing you for your decision, maybe you made the best decision, because there's an equal level of like, yeah, okay, well, for me, as long as they understand why I made the decision that I did, they can
Mm-hmm.
disagree with it. And I understand that. It can't be because I said so.
Yeah.
There needs to be logic behind why I believe what it is that I believe and why I made that particular
Mm-hmm.
decision. Advice would be, have your core values. Never go at it alone. I mean, the being a superintendent is sometimes a lonely thing. So you lean on your colleagues, who are
Mm-hmm.
other superintendents,
Mm-hmm.
and there's strength in loneliness
Yep.
sometimes. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But I lean on my team, and my
Yeah.
team is a good group of people. They're not all like me. We may value the same kinds of things, but
Yeah.
they bring different perspectives. They bring a different
Yeah.
lens with how they look at
Yeah.
a particular problem and how to solve a problem. So I lean on them as well. I
Yeah.
think those are the things that you do especially when there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, I'm not, I know you're a particularly religious person,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. I'm not particularly religious,
Yeah.
by way of practicing, but
Yeah.
there is right and wrong. There are things that are
Yeah.
like true and just.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
you don't violate those.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's truth
Yeah.
exists. Like that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that are not okay.
Yeah.
And I think you just hold fast to those. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's morals. I mean, for
Yeah.
some it's like the 10 commandments, for others
Yeah.
it's faith. Like I don't want to make
Yeah.
God mad because if I do, then
Yeah.
I'm not getting to heaven.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
they're just truths, I think, that
Yeah.
you just don't do things, and
Yeah.
things are being done that you shouldn't do in the
Totally.
world. You know what I mean?
Totally.
People are saying things they shouldn't
Yeah.
say.
Totally. So that brings us to this, this thing that's been a challenge in education is, DEI has become weaponized. It's become
Sure
very
has.
politicized. I've worked with districts where they like, they did it because it was trendy, and then they jumped off of it. And then you got some who are like, really like, I think this is like a part of who we are, right? It's a part of our values. And I always tell people, right, whether we call it DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think we all can agree that we want the outcome. And you
Yeah.
talked about that earlier, right? The outcome is that every kid, regardless to the uniqueness of their identity, that they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued, loved, and supported.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, talk about, just the challenges that's associated with trying to pursue that outcome when, you got to deal with people coming to your school board saying, "Hey, what are you doing with this?" And and don't do that. Don't try to brainwash my child and all those different things and stuff like that. Um, how have you been able to lead through all that turbulence?
Yeah, I certainly had as a superintendent my share of community members coming
Mm-hmm.
to meetings and saying things that were like hurtful, like,
Yeah.
oh, and they were complaining. Some of them were about, first it was SEL, social emotional learning, like
Yeah.
don't do that. That's
Yeah.
a bad acronym. You can't use that. And then it was
Yeah.
DEI, and
Yeah.
Lloyd's down with the blacks and the gays. And somebody said
Yeah.
that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Um, I think it goes back to core values. You got to be comfortable with like who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe because I've been doing this for 31 years,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Maybe I get towards
Yeah.
the end
Yeah.
of retirement and I'm like, I'm going to do what it
Yeah.
is the right, is the right thing. My
Yeah.
journey, and I've shared this with you before, I think, was when the incident with George Floyd occurred, a lot of people reacted in a lot of different ways. Some
Mm-hmm.
districts were coming out with like statements and all kinds of other
commitments,
things.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And for me, I'm not, I mean, it was horrific. It brought all kinds of emotions
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
But what I wasn't ready to do professionally was to run into the fire
Yeah.
and start saying stuff,
Yeah.
um, because I didn't really, I didn't know enough,
Yeah.
and it's one of the things that led me,
Yeah.
to you. And so
Yeah.
for me, when something like that happens where I really
Yeah.
don't know, I know where my heart was, but
Yep.
I didn't know where the
Yep.
words were and things,
Yeah.
is I was going to learn more about it. And so,
Yep.
didn't learn. I went out of state. I went to the Connecticut Association of School
Mm-hmm.
Superintendents. They had a group with a guy named Lee Title, who is
Yeah.
from Harvard University,
Yep.
and it was a group of white superintendents from Connecticut, and they let me in,
Yeah.
um, to learn and talk about just race and that whole kind of DEI field,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I like learned an awful lot.
Yeah.
Um, all kinds of books that came out, of course,
Yep.
that have been, particular people calling problems with certain books with a
Yep.
particular author,
Yep.
whether it's being anti-racist
Yep.
or, whatever. So I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and what I learned is, yes, George Floyd was about race, but the problems were really greater than just that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so as I started to like look around in our area and think about like who can help me get smarter,
Yeah.
I found you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the things, like you said, they have problems with the words, and I've said this before, is like, don't let the words get in the way of the work.
Yep.
People, all people who live in this community and any community, want to send their kids to school, and they want their kid to have friends.
Yeah.
They want them to be safe. They want them to be cared for. They want the adults in the school to love them, or at least tolerate them,
Yep.
and to be seen, heard,
Yep.
all those things. And so that's not a race thing. That's like
Yeah.
a human thing for
Yeah.
me. So as I learned more about cultural humility and really
Yeah.
what it was about and what it was
Yeah.
for, was really trying to, not arm us, because that's a military word, but provide us with a set of
Yeah.
tools
Yeah.
and a safe space to be able to talk about
Yeah.
these kinds of things, because everybody's afraid,
Yep.
has been anyway, to get into
Yep.
the space and talk about it. And so while other people went and they did their resolutions, we never did a resolution, because that's just words.
Yeah.
And that's not a crack on anybody
Yeah.
for doing that. But I wanted action. And part of it is like, let's learn as an organization.
Yep.
We partnered with you,
Yep.
and we didn't learn DEI.
Yeah.
We learned that there's lots of different people who are in our organization who come to our schools,
Yep.
and everybody deserves to be seen, heard, valued, and
Yep.
loved. And we need to create a culture that does that. We think we had a culture, but we
Yeah.
need to be sensitive to that
Yeah.
now, even more so,
Yeah.
I think, because people were afraid, people were
Yeah.
hurting, people were marginalized.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're white and poor, black and rich,
Yeah.
whatever. You can't be marginalized.
Yeah.
Like, we need to listen.
Yeah.
And so that's what I learned. I mean, and
Yeah.
I learned that like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like die on DEI hill, because it's
Yeah.
not about DEI. It's
Yeah.
about the ideas associated
Yeah.
with treating people like they would want to be treated, and like
Yeah.
you would want to be
Yeah.
treated.
No, it's been awesome, man. I mean, the journey's been phenomenal,
Mm-hmm.
because I think about the fact that you've built this path for people to come in and to be able to have a safe space, to be able to ask questions, to be able to learn. And I just think that's phenomenal. One of the things that I've recently discovered, that I've been sharing with some superintendents and other leaders, because I subscribe to, I don't know what it is, I get all these articles, research articles that come out about humility and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
They did this long study where they discovered that when it comes to interpersonal humility, because humility, you can measure it in different capacities, in different ways. But when it comes to like the interpersonal humility between people, what they discovered is that if a child has not had the benefit of the right community or the right home where they've seen humility modeled, meaning people listening, how people treat each other. If that child does not get the benefit of that, then that child is almost impacted in their development
Sure.
to where they struggle with having the capacity to know how to have the emotional intelligence, right? To know how to engage in those humble behaviors. And so they said, as a result of the lack of humility in a school or home, there are two things that happen. If the child doesn't get that, the child either becomes very submissive,
Hmm.
or they become domineering,
Okay.
where there's this strong desire to want to push people or to dominate them, or to lord power over them. So it's like it takes you to these two polar opposites, because I think Aristotle said humility is the mean of all virtues. It is the one, it's that mean of all
Mm-hmm.
virtues, right, that keeps us
Yeah.
balanced. And so I thought that was really powerful. I discovered that just in the work that I'm doing. But, I think that study just really speaks to how important the work is, how important language is. And, I think that's why we've been able to really have a lot of success with what we've been doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, it was being intentional. We invited people, right? We
Hmm.
created cohorts of people.
Yep.
Um, I think we've had, well over 150 people go through, just the experience. And I'm saying a course, but really the idea of being able to get into a room and to learn a number of different things, not to be
Mm.
indoctrinated or, whatever it
Yeah.
may happen to be, but really to learn about cultural humility and how it aligns with creating a place that can
Yeah.
inspire and empower kids. So,
Yeah.
as I said before, that's our lens, right? Like whatever program, whatever it may happen to be, will
Hmm.
this help inspire and empower
Yeah.
kids? And there are other programs out there that I don't think would do that because,
Yeah.
and was the fear, and I think is the fear, particularly in the white community, is they're going to make my kid feel bad for being
Yeah.
white. They're going to blame him or her for everything that happened in the past. They're going
Yeah.
to do da da da. No, no,
Yeah.
we're not. Maybe others are. We're not. We're not going to do that. What we're going to
Yeah.
do is we're going to create a safe space where we can sit down and we can have a conversation,
Yep.
and we're going to, like, as you say, like, lean in and listen, um, try to understand, be curious, all those things, um, and then come out of that better than how we were going in. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that, like, oh, we're going to go into, we're tearing down statues and we're erasing this, that, and the other
Hmm.
thing. No, we just want to try to get better and be a better person. And so I think the more that I can do as a leader, um, to provide opportunities for the adults in the system to get smarter on how to interact with people and how to communicate with
Hmm.
them, that will lead us towards being able to towards our vision.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's, how I've gone
Yeah.
about doing that. And I've found that and on our little chart that's over there, one of our benefits is teach
Hmm.
with humility, and we
Yeah.
learned that through our experience with
Yeah.
you. We wrote that word specifically in there
Teach with humility.
is a result of that. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
just,
That's so
and that
good.
means, like, know who you are, know what you believe, learn of the students who are in front of you, and what they think, and just teach with humility.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That probably got to be my next book.
Teach with humility.
Teach with
Yeah.
humility.
We trademarked it already. I'm just kidding. We did.
So last question, and then we're gonna get into these cards. When it's all said and done, and I know you've been thinking about this,
Yeah, I know.
what do you hope your legacy will be in Olmsted
Yeah,
Falls?
and I told you that legacy question is one that we ask every person that applies for a job in Olmsted
Yeah.
Falls that gets in front of me when we're interviewing who are finalists.
Yep.
Um, and I guess for me, I want my legacy to be a leader who was authentic, was genuine, um, and that cared about the people that he interacted with every
Hmm.
day, and left the school district in a better place than it was whenever I came into it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we stand on the shoulders of giants and have been
Yeah.
here, like,
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So that's for me. I would want my legacy to be that. I mean,
That's good, man.
yeah.
So what we've been doing in each of these shows with this, right? So Humble Conversations is the name of the
Okay.
podcast. I developed this card deck because again, like humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less.
Mm-hmm.
Then has on the card, be the reason someone feels welcome, seen, heard, value, love, and support. That's the goal of these, right? So you have the leadership deck, right? Which I'll let you take that one, right? That is something that you would ask like the people that report to you, right?
Okay.
You would take some cards out of there and you would ask. So I'm gonna ask you, you're gonna ask me one, I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
ask
get
you
to
one.
ask you. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then we have the team deck for like those larger meetings and stuff, right? That really helps to facilitate that. So I'll go first and then you find one, all right?
Okay.
So this is a good one. Y'all ready for this one? What's something you're proud of but rarely get to share? Something you're proud of but rarely get a chance to share.
A good question. So one of the things I've tried to do as a school superintendent is to keep my own family and kids out of like
Yep.
the media, social media, like using them or anything. I always talk about other people's kids and other um of everything that I've done. And I think, my wife and I that I'm most proud of is my kids, man.
Yeah.
They are better people than I am.
Yeah. That's cool.
They're like the best thing that I've ever done.
Yep.
And I get to talk to them about them some in front of like my coworkers and things,
Mhm.
but I'm just so proud of them. They're so, you think about humility and things, that's them.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. You
Yeah.
get to choose one, and then I'll answer it. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Who inspires you and why?
That's a good one. Man, it's a lot of people that inspire me. To be honest, you talked about one about being religious, and I refer to, and I probably would refer to it a little different because I think everybody's religious because to me religious is just something that you do habitually. So
Okay.
like you could be religious with your golf. Or you could be you know
I'm not that. That's maybe why I'm
I
bad.
know, right?
You know?
But I would probably say I'm probably more spiritual in a
I
sense,
like that. I've heard that.
yeah. So because I am a Christian, I do take a lot of inspiration from, just the Bible and
Mm-hmm.
just Jesus Christ, and I've been doing a little series now that I'm going to try to commit to just leadership principles from the life of Jesus.
That's great.
But I take a lot of inspiration from people like yourself when I watch what you do here. I look at people who come from humble beginnings and I look and see how they built something that's really successful, and I try to listen to their podcast. I'm inspired by obviously Dr. King and just what he was able to do.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think a reason why a lot of his work resonates with me now is because a lot of what I'm being asked to do is to try to change mindsets and hearts and cultures and systems. And a lot of that, what fights that is people's hearts. So, that's why I call myself like the heart doctor. Like, man,
I love that. Yeah, and I could
yeah.
see that as far as one of the things I do is during Black History Month, read the letter from Birmingham jail.
It's a good one.
And
yeah.
And I think about that,
Yeah.
often of like what could I do in order to do
Yep.
that. So to have him as an inspiration,
Yeah.
that's how I would view you more in
Yeah.
line with that set of beliefs.
No, I
The heart
appreciate
doctor.
that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So this has been so awesome, man. I thank you for you had a busy schedule, and I thank you for lending this space. To be honest, the vision of this was twofold. Humble Conversations was one, a platform that I wanted to build to teach people about leadership and how to lead with humility. But number two, I also wanted to model something that I didn't see in the world. The world is going to push, media is going to push black versus white and all these other things. And so I wanted to show the world a black guy and a white guy are friends.
55-year-old white guy.
Right.
And a
45-year-old
black guy.
That's right. That we're good friends. Right. And that
We are good friends.
And that, we're working together to do good. And I think what I've learned on this journey is we got to be careful about what we subscribe to, about the noise. There are a lot of people that come in many different shades and sizes that will surprise you. And I just want to leave this conversation on the note that oftentimes your greatest blessing comes in least likely places.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we'll get so caught up with that race and be like, well, he's a white guy, or he's black, or he's this and that and so forth, and we don't open ourselves up. Or we run away from people who might vote different from us, or we run away from people who might look different than us. And so Humble Conversations is just a platform to show people that you really need to sit at the table.
Yeah, and talk.
And
We've
talk.
lost. That's my biggest concern, I think, overall, is we've lost the ability to sit down and have like a civil conversation with people.
Yeah.
Like, we may differ on, certain views, but I mean, we share a lot as far as like core values.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter skin color, ethnicity, whatever. I think we got to do that. So I'm just pleased to be part of this conversation. And so this was great.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you having me.
Well, thank you for watching another episode of Humble Conversations. Be sure to subscribe and share this video and tune in to the next episode. And this is Dr. Knight and Dr. Jim Lloyd. And so we're glad that you're here, and we appreciate you for watching.
Thank you for watching Humble Conversations with Dr. James Knight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you more great content. See you next time.